On the 1st of April 2026, Portugal's parliament voted for the changes in the nationality law once again. And I know what you're going to say. Maybe it was April Fool's Day. I wish it was April Fool's Day, but this one was for real. So please go ahead and stick around until the very last minute to understand exactly what this means for you, what you need to do as of now, and what you would need to think about in the future. You can share this video with somebody else who would also benefit from it. Now, the nationality law in Portugal has been going through several changes over time. And if you already saw this on the news, in October of 2025, there was quite a number of changes. And as of the day I'm posting this, the law has been approved by Parliament, but it has not yet come into force. The President of Portugal still has to sign it, and he may not. So we are in a window right now where things could still change, which is exactly why I wanted to break this down for you today. Please note that this is not legal advice. It is just information that I have collected from the news items as well as legal experts. So please make sure that you do your own research depending on your situation, because one situation is very different from another, and it's important for you to do enough research depending on your situation. Now, one thing that you have to realize is that Portugal has been trying to revise this nationality law for a while now, and in October of 2025, Parliament voted through a first version of these changes, but Portugal's Constitutional Court reviewed it in December and struck down several parts as unconstitutional, so it went back to Parliament. Now, on 1st of April, Parliament voted once again, and when they voted this time, they passed a new version of the law, and it passed 152 votes to 64. That is a whole 2/3 majority, which is a red flag that I will explain later on this video, which is why the question everyone is asking is, what did they actually change? The big one here is the citizenship timeline. So if you are not from a EU country or a CPLP country, this means that this change is from 5 years all the way to 10 years. A CPLP country is the community of Portuguese language countries, which includes Brazil, Cape Verde, Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, and so on and so forth. And the pathway to Portuguese citizenship has been extended from 5 years to 10 years for anybody who does not come from either the EU or the CPLP countries. So which means that if you come from any of the other countries, then it is from 5 years to 10 years. If you come from a CPLP country or an EU country, then it is from 5 years to 7 years. That's the biggest difference and the biggest change that everybody is actually wondering about. The other change also is the timeline for which this period is actually calculated, which you have to pay attention to, because this changed. Previously, your residency period was counted from the date you submitted your residence permit application, and under the new law, it will be counted from the date your first residence card was actually issued. So given how AIMA has been processing residence permits, you need to pay attention to this, because it will be from the first day that the residence card was issued and not from the first day you applied, which was what was happening previously and is still happening until now, because this law can still be vetoed, can still be taken back to the Constitutional Court, or can be signed. So now, another change that is very important is that there is no more grandfathering. And you might wonder, what does grandfathering mean? Grandfathering, in this case, it means that people who are already in Portugal, who moved here under the old rules, who planned their lives around that 5-year citizenship pathway, you are not protected protected. It would mean that, yes, you would still have to wait until the 10th year mark, or you would still have to wait until the 7-year mark, depending on where you come from. So this is very important. And another question that several people have been asking is about the Golden Visa Scheme. So the Golden Visa program itself was not necessarily changed. What changed was where you would invest in, which is still the same until now. The benefits are still intact, which means that you still need to spend only 7 days a year in Portugal to qualify. You still get that Schengen access. You can still choose your tax jurisdiction. That part did not change. What changed is the citizenship pathway that is attached to it. So golden visa holders who are not CPLP nationals are now looking at 10 years instead of 5 to get the citizenship. However, permanent residency at the 5th year mark is still very much possible. And in fact, if you're listening to this and your country does not necessarily allow dual citizenship, then this would mean that you can still apply for the permanent residency at the 5th year mark without wondering what next for you. And if you feel that the 10 years is quite a lot for you to wait for citizenship, you still can apply for permanent residency at the 5th year mark, bearing all the conditions and all the documents that you need for that permanent residency. Now, so what happens next? So this is why I say that this is not completely settled yet. The law has been approved by Parliament, but it now goes to the President for promulgation. And he has 20 days to sign it, to veto it, or take it back to the Constitutional Court. And this timeline is by around the 21st of April. So we are still within that window period where we are waiting. As of now, this is the 14th of April, and several things keep on changing. So you have to also keep on checking the news items as well as with your lawyer, just so that you can know what exactly it means to you depending on your situation. Very important that you don't go by the wind. It's important that you go by your own situation. If the president vetoes it, the Parliament can override with an absolute majority, which is about 116 of the 230 deputies. So since the law passed with 2/3 support, this is very much achievable, but it would still delay the timeline at much further. But if he refers it to the Constitutional Court, the law is suspended until the court rules. And given that the court already struck down parts of the previous version in December, a second referral could mean that there are more changes that the court could agree on, but we have to keep on waiting for this once again. Now, the bottom line, if you're watching this, is that we still need more clarity around this issue. And for you as a person who is planning to move to Portugal and haven't started yet, the honest answer is Portugal is still one of those accessible countries. One of the things that you have to ask yourself why you're moving to Portugal is not just because of the ease of accessibility, but also exactly what you would want to bring into Portugal and also what you would want to gain from the country, as well as, it is a symbiotic relationship. It's not just one way. You're coming for the 300 days of sunshine and, the good vibes and all these kind of things. You also need to think about exactly why you're moving to Portugal, because you're going to need the patience. One, if at all, you're moving for citizenship issues. You're going to need a lot of bureaucratic work, paperwork that might not end sometimes. So you need to think about this very carefully before you make your move. And as well, you can have options of other European countries, but I will tell you for free, it's not going to be easy. None of the countries is actually easy. The other day I was speaking about Kenya and how long it takes. It takes about 7 years before you can be naturalized in Kenya. And so all of the countries really have lots of paperwork that you have to do when you think about citizenship by naturalization and so on and so forth. So you have to think about this. But if you are already in Portugal, what I would like you to think about is if you're maybe very close to the 5th year mark, maybe your 5th year mark is actually coming up maybe in May or June. What I would say is start applying for all the documentation that you need. You need to do your Portuguese exam. You need to have all the documentation from your own home country. You also need to show that you have been here paying taxes and all these kind of things. If at all the 5th year mark for you is upcoming, please run very fast and start applying for this citizenship before they make these changes. But if you're still very far away from that 5th year mark, then you would need to know that you will need to wait a little longer. However, the option of permanent residency is still one of the things that you can consider by the time you hit the 5th year mark. Now, what I would say is always get proper legal advice and not by hearsay or what someone else is actually saying. And I would want you to realize that the political winds have been shifting all across the globe. It's not just Portugal that has been trying to change the laws. It is happening across the globe. So wherever you choose, you still need to realize that there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be done for whatever the country that you end up choosing. And to summarize, if you have listened to this video and you'll be like, too long, didn't watch, or too long, didn't read, one of those captions is that to summarize, as of April 14th, 2026, by the time you're watching this video, 14th of April, 2026, one of the things is that Portugal's parliament has approved a new nationality law that extends citizenship pathway to 10 years for non-EU and non-CPLP nationals and 7 years for CPLP nationals. The president has not yet signed that law. There is still a possibility of a veto or a constitutional referral, so you have to stay tuned for this. The golden visa program itself is unchanged, but the citizenship timeline attached to it is actually 10 years. Again, this is not yet signed as law, so you have to stay tuned into this. And if you're already in Portugal, get legal advice specific to your situation. If you're already at the 5th year mark, I would hurry up things so that by the time anything is set into law, then you already have submitted your application and you're just waiting for the period, which usually is maybe 1 year or 2 years. If you're lucky, is 1 year, but it's usually a period of 2 years. It can even be more depending on how long or how fast they are actually processing the citizenship documents and so on and so forth. So I will keep covering this as it develops, but you have to also remember that choosing Portugal is not necessarily a bad choice. It makes it a bit complicated, obviously, right now, but it's important that you realize that you have several other options, and I will keep covering this as it develops, so please keep tuned. And this is the reason as to why I make this video, so that you can know what does it mean to you as you think about moving to Portugal. A lot of other laws have changed along the way, and you have seen the updates. If you watch the news and you check the updates on embassies, websites, and so on and so forth, please note that this is not legal advice. You have to do your own research. You have to seek a proper legal advice from a lawyer. I am just a messenger, so please do not shoot the messenger. And if you have enjoyed this video, I have done several other videos that would be helpful about life abroad as well as moving abroad and so on and so forth. And I like to tell you as it is. I don't like to sugarcoat things so that you can know what you're getting yourself into. And is it doable? Yes. Does it need lots of patience? Yes, 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 and yes. Because I've been through this process and it requires a lot of patience. It requires for you to immerse yourself into the culture, to understand how things go, learn the language, and so on and so forth. So this is very important for you to realize. And I do hope that you have enjoyed this video. And until next time, bye.